Welcome to the driver's seat, where we are going to take a good look at the 2020 mid-cycle refreshed Audi Q7, which is on my right. To my left is the 2019 model. And a lot of times you might be in the dealership and see a 19 and it's a better deal than a 20, but I kind of want to point out some of the key differences. And the ones I'm going to talk about are pretty significant. It really starts with what's under the hood. This 2019 model, it had a 3-liter V6, but it was a supercharged engine. Now you have a 3-liter turbocharged engine, and you get more power, more torque, and it's more efficient. But really the primary difference, besides all the different design cues, which include this grille, as you can see, you have this horizontal grille on the 19. Now you have this much more aggressive looking grille on the 2020, which is kind of becoming the new face of the brand. But the interior is really where they stepped it up. When you look at the Audi Q8, which came out last year, it's been a great success for Audi and a nice addition to their crossover family. Well, that Q8 has now set the styling design language, if you may, for the rest of the crossovers, and the Q7 is now getting a lot of that, not just on the exterior with this grille, but on the interior with a new version of the virtual cockpit, a new infotainment, new MMI. It is a completely new interior, and when you look at this vehicle and its interior versus this one, it really is night and day. The power is one thing, but the interior experience in that cabin, the 2020 just blows away the 2019. We talked about the grille, which is a very critical part of the vehicle. It's what you see when you walk up to your vehicle. It's what people see in their rear view mirror. But I want to talk about these HD matrix headlights. And what does that mean? Well, the HD means you have 2 rows of lights. And to me, no one does lighting better than Audi. They're still working out some kinks with NHTSA because the matrix headlights that they get in Europe, we can't legally get here yet, but everything is already set up. It'll just be a software update once they're able to do it. And once they do that, my God, you are just going to be blown away and wonder how we ever even got away with the old lights that we're using. But that's just one of the changes for the 2020 model. Looking down the side of the vehicle, they didn't make major changes to the panels, but they have made some design cues, including how they handle the rocker panel and this inlay here. It stands out a little bit more, gives it a little bit sportier look. Again, following the Q8's sportier design language, and I think it really works to update the Q7 properly until about another 2 years where it gets a complete redesign. Of course, with any crossover, it's all about passenger capacity and cargo capacity. So you have room for 7, and Audi's done a really nice job of their configuration. Unlike most crossovers, which are either a 40-20-40 split or perhaps a 60-40 split, here you have a 35-30-35. And they did that on purpose for the second row so that if 3 people wanted to sit next to each other, they have almost the same amount of shoulder room, and I think it really works. Overall, you have 70 cubic feet of cargo capacity, and that's more than enough. Certainly if you're looking at Q8s or perhaps Q5s and you need something more, you need a proper 3rd row, and you need more cargo space, then you got to step up to the Q7. We mentioned that Audi has gone to a 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine that produces 345 horsepower at 369 pound-feet of torque, and that's very respectable for a V6. But there is some exciting news from Audi. We'll start with one end, which is that they're going to bring back the 2-liter engine with about 250 horsepower. So that's nice for people who are looking for good fuel economy from a vehicle of this size. But the really big news is that Audi is going to come out with an SQ7 that's going to have 500 horsepower. It'll have a 4-liter turbocharged engine, V8, and I think they need it. I just got back from driving the BMW X5M competition, which has over 600 horsepower. So clearly there is a market for these super high horsepower family crossovers, if you may. And Audi doesn't want to be left out of the game, so it's nice to know that they're paying attention to their customers and to the market. We have definitely spent a proper week with this redesigned, restyled 2020 Audi Q7. And what I mean by that is we've put about 800 miles in our 7 days so far, and it's been great. The updates that they've made on the exterior styling. We've covered those already. Really freshen it up to hold it over for another couple of years until they do a complete new Q7. The new powertrain, the 3-liter turbocharged V6, much smoother than the supercharged engine. Just terrific power delivery. So we've been we're very pleased with that. But let's talk about the interior, because that's really where they made the most significant changes. We'll get into the driving a little bit, but you have the newest version of Audi's virtual cockpit, which in my opinion is one of the best in the industry. You have all your different views. You can have a map, you can have your phone numbers, radio stations, whatever it is that you want to have in the middle. You can minimize the gauges if you want. You can maximize them, and they're looking more and more like real gauges, the shadows. It's just amazing, just from each iteration, how much better they're getting. They have entire teams dedicated just to little things like that. And now we move over here to the infotainment system, which is brilliant. You have 4 ways to navigate. You have Google Maps, you have Audi's own Maps, Waze, and you can use, if you have an iPhone, then you have Apple Maps. So 4 different ways to navigate. Just brilliant imagery, just very vivid. Everything about this vehicle is very intuitive, very customizable, and you can see it's just a very pleasant place to be. Ordinarily, when we get these vehicles, we get the top of the line models, which would be the Prestige. This time we got the Premium Plus. So Audi wanted to give us what is most typical of what a Q7 buyer would purchase, and we appreciate that. But with the Premium Plus, you don't get the massaging seats, which is one of our favorite features, especially in this Q7. Would have been nice on those 800 miles we've logged so far. We didn't have that, so there's my one complaint. But overall, the vehicle is very light. It's nimble. It's great around town. It's great on roads. It's even good with some mild canyon carving that we've done. Yes, it's a big vehicle, but Audi's engineers have done a terrific job in managing this amount of mass and really making it feel like a light and nimble vehicle. When you look at the segment that the Q7 is playing in, there are some amazing competitors. We have the all-new BMW X7, which is selling quite nicely. It's a little bit bigger than the Q7, but still it's a 3-row European proper crossover. Mercedes-Benz. You've got the GLE, which is no, not GLE. When you look at the segment that the Q7 is playing in, you have key competitors from BMW and Mercedes-Benz on the German side. You have to really put Land Rover, Range Rover in there as well, and then a few of the Japanese players. The MDX is probably the closest competitor, but it's really at the end of its life cycle. There's a new one coming later this year. So, I think Audi's done a good job of packaging the Q7 and pricing it right, especially now that it's kind of near the tail end of its product life cycle. What I mean by that is typically that's around 6 years. We're at the halfway mark, so expect another 2.5, maybe 3 years out of this refresh style, and then you're going to get an all new Q7. But it's fine. It's right there in the middle. Yeah, the X7 is, if you want the latest and greatest, that's going to be right there. The oldest is, I mentioned the Acura MDX, but there's a new one coming. So eventually this one's going to be one of the older ones. But Audi does a pretty good job of not letting those vehicles age too long. So, and how do they keep it fresh? Well, they do it with technology, an updated virtual cockpit we mentioned, updated MMI system. So everything is fresh in here, and it really works quite nicely. This is a very pleasant place to be. Seats are very comfortable. The vehicle drives nicely. Great powertrain, just great styling. Really, very few things to complain about. One of my favorite features, which it probably isn't talked about too much, is the second row seat. And what most vehicles do in this segment is that they have a 40-20-40 split. But what Audi does is 35-30-35. So that means each passenger, if you do have 3 adults in the second row, and you can do it, it's a little tight, but you can do it, well, everyone pretty much has the identical width of seat. So just little things like that tells me how they understand their buyers and how that second row is used. So a lot of innovation, a lot of great thought into this vehicle. The third row, it is what it is. Everything in this segment has a challenge third row. It's not really meant for long trips for adults, but it does a great job on short trips. And of course, children, no problem. They could sit back there for hours. One of the things I'm not a huge fan of is this piano black finish. So I've been wiping it down throughout the week, and there's just no way to keep it clean for a long period of time. It's just, so shiny and so glossy that every little fingerprint, every speck of dust shows up. So I really wish Audi would get away from that. I like the satin flat finishes a lot better. It's just more practical for everyday use. What I'm seeing here, it looks great in the showroom, but in everyday world, we're out here, it's a little dusty environment, everything shows up, and I would like to see them kind of get away from that. Hopefully that's something that they're working on. So what's the bottom line on the 2020 mid-cycle refreshed Audi Q7? This is a brilliant family premium luxury crossover. Certainly there are plenty of competitors from Mercedes-Benz, BMW, just to name a few, but to me, Audi just does a few things a little bit better. I think when it comes to the interior, which is a very important place to be, where you're spending most of your time, they are just one step above the competition. I think the power delivery is a little bit better, and Quattro. They really do have the best all-wheel drive system in the industry. I'm Ron Doran. Thanks for watching. See you next time on The Driver's Seat.